1 hour down, one to go, and I'm very excited for our next guest. Because last time we had Bill Bender, Sporting News National College Football Writer. Find Bill also on Twitter at BillBender92. It was a very depressing conversation. It was right on the cusp of Big Ten announcing that they will not play football this fall. It was a very dark time in my life. It was a very dark time, I'm sure, in Bill's life. But Bill, just 2 or 3 months later, look at us. We are talking about college football, real college football in the fall. Who would have thought?
And it's great. And we've been able to play football and try to get everybody in action. And there's obviously been a ton of hitches. The Big Ten had a big one this week with Wisconsin. I think we both learned, I can't speak for you, but I know I speak for my family, that we just kind of live day to day, week to week, and enjoy what we have at this point. And hopefully we have some more football going into November.
I'm with you there, and you're right. Just when it's almost impossible to get comfortable, because I know, at least for myself, anytime I kind of have where, not that you pretend the virus is gone, but you just think, okay, this sport is kind of out, the virus can't get in again, as we see, like you said, with baseball or so, with Justin Turner recently, and that whole thing, and now as you see, like you said, with Wisconsin having to cancel their game because of an outbreak. So we'll start right there, Bill. So realistically, as we say, right, 9 games in 9 weeks was a massive challenge for the Big Ten. They thought they could do it. I honestly thought they could do it because they're testing every day. You kind of weed out maybe that chance for an outbreak. As we see, one weekend, Wisconsin proved that can't be the case. Realistically, in your mind, how many games can the Big Ten actually fit in?
Well, 6 to 7. You got to figure there's going to be more outbreaks among the teams. The big question with Wisconsin that I had yesterday wasn't that they had to cancel the Nebraska game. That's obviously going to happen. It's what about Purdue? When your program is on pause for 7 days, when you might not have a quarterback room other than Danny Vandenboom at this point,
Yeah.
and when you have 2 days to prepare for a Big Ten game, college teams are creatures of habit. So all of those questions are kind of swirling around right Wisconsin, who – in my mind, is the Big Ten West favorite. After how they looked against Illinois, there's no doubt about that. So it will be interesting to see when they come back, what as you know, Ryan, the big thing here is that the Big Ten did not allow themselves any flexibility, and it's really coming back to haunt them.
Right. I thought personally the second, version of the schedule they put out there where I forget if there's 2 or 3 bye weeks built in, but there was a ton of flexibility. And as we've seen so far at the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, they've had that flexibility because they started earlier, and canceling games isn't that big of a deal. But like you said, it's especially like you said too for Wisconsin, for a team that the Big Ten was fair. I'm with you. The way Graham Mertz looked right away, and you think maybe this team could push Ohio State, maybe because really no other fourth team kind of emerged so far through the first month plus of college football. Maybe this team had an outside shot of the playoff run, and they said just when those good vibes, good thoughts were flowing, Mertz is out, and now, like you said, one game at least is canceled. It's a harsh reminder, it really is, what the Big Ten did.
It is, and the 21-day rule is interesting as well. We're in the youth sports circuit here in Central Ohio, and we've had things that have happened with that, and certain people will have to be out for so many days. But 21 days, that's 3 weeks, and that was something different than what the SEC and ACC has done. The SEC, I think, has actually managed the outbreaks ranging from, Florida to teams like LSU and Tennessee before the season, and obviously Nick Saban. And they've found a way to continue to push through. The NFL, because of their schedule flexibility, has been able to kind of push through, and knock on wood, I'm literally doing it right now, that hopefully they can push through this schedule because it's working. And I still think, and this is pure speculation, I have nothing medically to back this up, I just think that not having fans or having limited fans definitely helps.
That's interesting, yeah, because it has been different for sure. I told myself I wouldn't complain, and just be grateful that football is back. And like I said, one of those areas where no fans hurts is a team like Penn State, my alma mater. As we go, this is obviously a big week for them taking on Ohio State. Without a whiteout crowd is obviously a damaging factor for them. So I'm curious to flip it around on those sides. You are in Ohio. Obviously, you cover and look at this Ohio State team very up close. Watching that game last week against Nebraska, Bill, I'm not sure how you felt. I kind of had some concerns, some even shades, if you will, back to that 2018 version of the Ohio State defense. Nebraska got 210 rushing yards on them. Is there any reason for concern in your mind that maybe Ohio State isn't as bulletproof, isn't as invincible as we were led to believe, let's say, leading into this game?
Well, I mean, losing Chase Young, they're going to have to figure that out because it was almost like they were. I don't want to say spoiled, but it was a luxury to have Chase Young because he made it impossible for Big Ten offenses. I think one of the things Joel Klatt said on the telecast that made the most sense was, last year offenses were going at him and they had 2.5 seconds to get the ball off against two All-American corners. Now Ohio State still has a lot of talent on the defensive line, and that'll continue to develop. But yeah, I mean that would be if you had two nitpicks at Ohio State, it was that yes, Nebraska ran the ball on them, and two, it took a little bit for Master Teague and Trey Sermon to get going. They don't have J.K. Dobbins either, and but Justin Fields covers a lot of that up with the way he plays in the passing game.
He is absolutely unbelievable. We're talking to Bill Bender, Sporting News National College Football writer. Follow Bill, on Twitter. Easy for me to say at Bill Bender 92. So, Bill, speaking of which, right, there's two nitpicks there that I think you could talk about, like I said, the rushing game, absolutely, and then the ability to stop the run on defense. So I'm curious, from a Penn State perspective, right, this is a team that really, I'll say, confident for the most part, the only team in the last 5-6 years that's really been able to push Ohio State consistently. Right, we saw Iowa do it one year, we saw Purdue do it one year, but on a year-in-year basis, James Franklin and Penn State have really been the only team to push Ohio State year in and year out. Is there anything this year specifically for this game that you think Penn State could do to exploit Ohio State and, I mean, at least at this point, keep the game close? Could we keep it like, one score, 10 points with going to the fourth quarter? Is there anything Penn State could do to keep it close?
They got to be able to run the ball. I mean, and they've got to be able to, I don't want to say like slow the game down, but control their possessions with running the ball. They can't miss 3 field goals again. They can't have 3 first-half turnovers. It'll be over pretty quickly if they do that. I think Sean Clifford has to be lights out. You go back to last year's game. I mean, they made it a 4-quarter game. They stayed within striking distance. The defense was good, and they managed to keep the ball in front of them in terms of not allowing too many big plays in the passing game. And that's the other thing. I mean, you've got to make sure that Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson aren't just running free 20 yards down the field. So I think all of those things are at work. And to your point, yeah, I mean, on the field, they've been Ohio State's biggest competition the last 3 years. I would argue that Michigan and Penn State are kind of 2A and 2B, depending on which team is home, and that has kind of bared out in the standings the last couple of years. But Michigan, just their games against Ohio State the last 2-3 years haven't really been competitive.
No. They have not. I'm going to get to Michigan in a second here, but one less than at least with specifically to Penn State and Ohio State. So now, obviously, as you know, you know the great Ken Carman very well, morning host in Cleveland, and I love Ken. We both love Ken. He does the thing on a show I'm about to steal right now, right? I have a theory. It's something that he does on his morning show a ton, and I'm about to steal that because I have a theory I want to kind of run by you and get your thoughts. So watching that Penn State game against Indiana on Saturday, to me at least, again, I understand the circumstances, right? No spring football. The training camp was truncated. It was just very different than a normal year. So when you bring a new offense coordinator in Kirk Ciarrocca, it's tough to implement your system. To me, it looked a lot like Ricky Ronnie's system, looked a lot like the offense last year. This is a theory I have, and I want to run it by your expert mind. Because of the lack of familiarity, really, with the new offense coming in for Penn State, because they have Ohio State week 2, and because of this weird offseason, there's really less information out there more than ever. Is it possible, in your mind, that James Franklin and Kirk Ciarrocca kind of kept this offense bland on purpose in week number 1 to really not give Ohio State any sort of hints heading into this game? Is that at all possible?
Maybe at the outset, but then they had to turn it on in the second half. I mean, some of that goes out the door when you're losing a game. And they committed a lot of turnovers. I think Sean Clifford, he was a scrambler at times more than a quarterback. Yeah. But, I mean, they've got good receivers. They do. And, Washington's a good young one. Dotson, obviously. Pat Freiermuth is other than maybe Kyle Pitts, the best tight end in the country. And, it's one of those things where we'll continue to see how that offense evolves. But, yeah, I mean, on to that theory, maybe they held some things back. I mean, the biggest thing they're going to be missing, as you know, and Urban Meyer pointed it out this week, I mean, when a whiteout legitimately is a 7 to 10 point advantage. And I've been at a couple of those where you see it and experience it, and you just know, I mean, how does the other team function in this environment?
Yeah, that is definitely going to be a big miss, unfortunately, whether it's on the broadcast, like I said, if you're in person, it's incredible experience. So, Bill, I'm curious. With that said, right, seeing how Penn State came out in the first game, seeing how Michigan, on the flip side, looked very dominant in their win over Minnesota, Is Penn State still, in your mind, the biggest hurdle to Ohio State going back to Indianapolis this year, or do you think it could be a different team, maybe that Michigan team down the road?
Michigan looked pretty good. I mean, here's the thing, and I pointed to this stat all off season with, and I think I've said it on Ken's show a few times, where Wisconsin, Penn State, and Michigan are 1-22 against the Buckeyes since Urban Meyer took over. The only victory was the only victory was when Grant Haley blocked a field goal on a kick that Ohio State shouldn't have kicked. So when you know all of those things, I mean, and I think Michigan takes the brunt of that because of the rivalry, because of the nature of it. But so that's why I said Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, call them 2A, 2B, 2C, depending on the year. But none of them are beating the Buckeyes. If you took Ohio State out of the Big Ten, the race between the Badgers, Wolverines, and Nittany Lions would be great every year because they're all so even. But back to Michigan, Joe Milton looked good. He's the best quarterback Harbaugh's had. And I say that after one game because he's the best getting the ball down the field quarterback Jim Harbaugh's ever had. And he does it pretty easily. Now, they have some concerns too. And I think Minnesota was a touch overrated. I think I said that on Ken's show last week. Did I say on his show that I thought Indiana had a better chance to upset Penn State than Minnesota?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure that's what was on the record.
Double check with Carmen just so I'm not embellishing here. But, and I think Michigan and Penn State are probably on pretty even footing as programs. And Penn State's been a little bit better at recruiting. But, I mean, again, James Franklin hasn't won at Michigan Stadium, and that's something that's coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I guess with that too, I just feel like watching Michigan year in and year out. Now, I'm not sure, again, it's one game, like I said, maybe Minnesota's a little bit overrated, but Joe Milton, like you said, looked good. This offense, for the first time under Jim Harbaugh, since he's gotten there, looked actually fun and exciting. So I do want to buy in to Michigan just because it's something different. Like I said, they not only lost to Ohio State in recent years, they got their tours blown off.
Right.
But it almost, I don't know about you, if you feel about this or agree, but almost just like, looks like a mental block, whether it's starting with Jim Harbaugh and trickles down to the team or vice versa, that no matter how good they are the first 10, 11 games, or in this year it's going to be 7 games, leading to that Ohio State game, no matter what their ranking is, no matter the momentum they have, no matter even if Ohio State's struggling, like in past years under Urban Meyer, they were kind of limping to the finish. And then that game comes and it's just like you would never think the 2 years were going the way they were because Michigan would just get their doors blown off every year. Can you, and again, it's one game I understand. Is there anything you can kind of point to say maybe this year could be different from Michigan perspective? Maybe drop the losing streak because it's been 15 in the last 16 years. They haven't even been close in a lot of these games.
It'll be a turning point one way or the other. And I say that in terms of the 3 that they've played under Harbaugh at Michigan Stadium haven't been close. The 2 that they've played at Ohio Stadium have been very interesting for different reasons. Obviously, in 2016 was the last chance Michigan had to beat them with the spot and everything that went into that. That was the game that Michigan kind of blew and had a chance to win. 18, they were favored. Remember, coming off the revenge tour and it beat Penn State soundly. They were favored by a lot, I think. And Ohio State just torched them with Dwayne Haskins. So that's why I say this is 2020. They've not won at the Shoe since 2000. When Drew Henson was their quarterback. That's a crazy stat, too.
Wow.
But one way or the other, and I have a suspicion that if both teams play all of their games, that Michigan will probably be either 7-0 or 6-1, and I'm pretty sure Ohio State's going to be 7-0, that it's going to be another turning point for Harbaugh and Michigan in that rivalry, one way or the other.